beautiful. My name is Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we're going to talk about my April reading wrap-up, which includes 17 books, so it's probably going to be a bit of a long one, so grab yourself a snack, maybe some coffee, I don't know, and we're going to get into the books. But before we do, I do have to say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online book subscription service for readers, and how it works is that each month their team vets hundreds of books and provides you with a carefully curated selection of new and early release fiction titles, so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. I'm in love with Book of the Month, been working with them for a really long time. I think that they are an incredible way to discover new books. I'm always finding new books in different genres, and they really help me branch out in terms of my reading, so I absolutely love them for that. And if for any reason the books don't stick out to you on a particular month, you can very easily skip a month at any time without any charge, and I absolutely love them for that. It's a very risk-free service in that regard, and I absolutely love them. And you can get your first box for $9.99 if you use my code MINAREADS. But let's talk about this month's selections. So this month we have 6 books to choose from. Book of the Month has currently expanded their selection range, so sometimes there will be 5 books to choose from, sometimes there'll be 6, sometimes there will be 7. It really depends. And this month there are going to be 6, and they're all really exciting books. So first we have Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour. It's a contemporary sapphic novel about 2 women and their yearning for home and connection. So then we have Book of Night by Holly Black. This is a very hyped adult fantasy release from Holly Black, who's a popular YA fantasy writer, and I'm excited to see what this is all about. Then we have Take My Hand by Dolene Perkins Valdez. So this is a historical fiction about a nurse who will stop at nothing to get justice for her patients. So then we have The Hacienda, and this is a gothic supernatural suspense novel. I'm really excited about this one, and it has comp titles to Rebecca and Mexican Gothic. Then we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, and this is a small town romance. Then we have Breathless by Amy McCulloch, and this is a story about a mountaineering expedition that goes horribly wrong. And finally we have Darling Girl by Liz Mikulski, which is a Peter Pan retelling. I love Peter Pan retelling, so I can't wait to give this one a shot. So these are all the Book of the Month selections for this month, so if any of these are interesting to you, you can check Book of the Month out in the link in my description. Use the code MINAREADS to get your first box for $9.99. Alright, let's get into the wrap-up. Like I said, this month I read kind of a lot of books. It was a really stressful month because it was final season for me, but one thing about me is that I'm going to procrastinate. If I need to be doing one thing, I'm going to be doing another. And so while I should have been studying and I should have been writing papers and all that good shit, I was reading. So yeah, that's why I read so many books despite it being one of the busiest times of the year for me. But yeah. So first and foremost, so to get us started, we're going to talk about the little historical romance reading binge that I went on post Bridgerton. I absolutely loved Bridgerton season 2. It has its issues, but I enjoyed it so much. Kay and Anthony, they were perfect for me. I love them so much. And so I read The Viscount Who Loved Me in March, and I really enjoyed it, probably just because I love the show so much. And that really sparked a historical romance reading binge for me. So I began my historical romance reading binge with a Courtney Milan book. This called The Governess Affair by Courtney Milan, and I didn't like it, I fear. This came really highly recommended to me, and I understand why. Because Courtney Milan, I think she's an incredible writer, and she writes these really interesting historical romance concepts, and I think that she approaches historical romance from an interesting lens. So I understand why people like her books, and I have read multiple of her books in the past. One was a modern romance and one was historical, and I enjoyed both of them, but this one I very much did not. So The Governess Affair is about this woman who is a governess, and she ends up being assaulted by this duke, and the duke, and basically she wants compensation for, you know, what she has been forced to experience, and he forced her to lose her job, as well as she's become pregnant. So she is in need of money, and she is trying to get reparations from him for this crime he's committed against her. And he obviously doesn't want to pay because he doesn't want to be implicated in this terrible crime that's going to affect his reputation. So he sends his fixer named Marshall to fix it and make her go away. So this is a story and a romance between the main governess, whose name I cannot remember, the governess, and Marshall, and they are kind of in this battle of wills about he's trying to get her to settle for a certain amount of money without bringing charges against him publicly. And listen, I think that Marshall and the main girl, I think they had chemistry. I think that their relationship was even kind of cute, but I think that for me personally, I just couldn't enjoy it because Marshall is working for the man who assaulted her, and he continues working for that man for the majority of the narrative, and it just was so deeply uncomfortable to me that I really couldn't enjoy the romance. I couldn't enjoy where it was going. I couldn't enjoy what was happening between them because it just gave me the ick really bad. So for me, this was kind of a 1 star. I'm sorry. I will definitely read more Courtney Milan in the future, but just whatever this book had going on, it wasn't for me, and that's okay. So then I read some Nicola Davidson novellas. The first one is called Surrender to Sin. This is about this girl. She's a very young widow, and she decides, you know, now that she has been widowed and she's finally rid of her gross, creepy old husband, she's gonna live her best life, have her hot girl summer, everything's gonna be cool. Except her shitty father decides that he's gonna marry her off to another shitty old man because he needs the old man's money or some shit like that. So she's like, hell no, that's not happening to me. I'm over it. No more old men. I can't do it. So she decides she's going to ruin her reputation. So she approaches this man. His name is like Sinjin. She approaches this man named Sinjin, and Sinjin owns like a den of pleasure, and she asks him to be involved in like a public affair with her so she can ruin her reputation and she won't have to marry this creepy old man that her father has set up for her. So yeah, it's like a fake dating historical romance with like sex lessons and stuff like that, and they're, you know, they're experimenting, they're doing all types of fun, sexy, steamy stuff together. And honestly, I enjoyed this one. I think this one was like a 3.5 star. Like, it was very enjoyable and it was very sexy and it was also really funny and I liked it. So, you know, it was cool. And I have nothing bad to say about this one. But the second one in the series, which is called The Devil's Submission, I believe, is about Sinjin's business partner, whose name is Devil. His real name's not Devil, but that's what they call him at like this club that they run. And so Devil, basically, he's a submissive and he has a wife. And this is a second chance romance, and essentially he's never told his wife that he's a submissive. And so once they get married and once his wife starts trying to be like, you know, more wifely in a historical sense, and she tries to kind of submit to him and everything like that because that's what she's been told like a good, gently bred woman should do when she's married, he becomes completely disinterested in her because she's not as fiery and dominating and domineering as she was when they were in their courting stage. So he basically like shoos her off to the countryside and he wants nothing to do with her. But she's like, you know, fuck that, you're my husband, I'm trying to be with you, I'm in love with you. So she comes back into the city and this is like a second chance romance between them. I really didn't like this romance because it is entirely predicated on miscommunication trope, and not just like miscommunication, but just like general assumptions that were just so insane to me. Like, the guy, Devil, he completely shuns her without ever communicating any of his desires or needs or wants to her, and he makes her feel entirely rejected. And then it becomes her job to like make him feel better about himself when he is being incredibly mean and shitty to her. You know, like, I understand that he feels self-conscious about his submissive nature and like that's not how men are supposed to be and everything like that. I get it. I understand where he was coming from, but I just felt like the story was just too slanted towards him, and he just had like no empathy for his wife, and that was weird as hell to me. And so I didn't like them, and I was not at all rooting for them to get back together. And you know, that's exactly what a second chance romance is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you want to see a relationship and want to see them come back together and, you know, reunite, and I absolutely did not feel that. So it was a no for me. Then I read some Tessa Dare books. These also came highly recommended. So first I read The Duchess Deal. I think that's what it's called. This was phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. It was so cute. Basically, The Duchess Deal is about this girl who, she's a seamstress and she makes the wedding dress for this duke. He's supposed to be getting married. He makes the wedding dress for his bride-to-be. However, their wedding kind of falls through, and the seamstress is like, okay, so I know your wedding didn't happen. Sorry to hear it, but I already made this wedding dress, and so this cost me, you know, days, months of labor, so I still need to be paid. And he's like, well, how about instead of paying you for the dress, you just marry me. I'm gonna make you a duchess. We're gonna have babies and everything's gonna be cool. We're gonna do this like marriage of convenience. And she's like, you know what? Okay, why not? So it's a marriage of convenience historical romance. It's so cute. It's so fun. It's amazing. And basically they're in this marriage of convenience because the duke, he is he's covered in burn scars from like a military accident, I believe, and so his previous bride doesn't want to be with him, and he feels like he is like not attractive and no one would ever want to marry him for like love, so he needs to enter this convenient arrangement. And their romance was just so cute. I absolutely loved the duke. I absolutely loved The Duchess Deal. Like, it was great. It was so funny, it was so cute, it was so romantic, and it kind of gave me like Beauty and the Beast vibes, and I really enjoyed it. So I would highly recommend this if you are a Bridgerton fan, because I feel like it gave me similar vibes as Bridgerton in terms of tone. It has like a kind of like ridiculous and rom-commy type feel, and I think that if you enjoy that aspect of Bridgerton, I think you will really like this. And because I enjoyed this Tessa Dare, I was like, okay, let me read another one. So I read When a Scot Ties the Knot, and I did not like this one at all. This is another marriage of convenience. It's about this girl who she doesn't want to be married. She has severe social anxiety, so she hates like the marriage march, she hates the balls, she hates the parties, and you know, going to the opera house. She hates all that stuff. She hates socializing with people, and so she decides that the way she's going to get out of that is she's going to tell her family that she's already engaged to someone, so that they will stop trying to marry her off and stop forcing her into all of these social events. So she pretends that she is engaged to this Scottish military man, and she sends him letters every day, and she says that his name is like Logan something or another. And so she sends letters to this Logan person every day. They're in correspondence supposedly, right? But he's not real. Except he is real, and he shows up at her doorstep one day and he's like, yeah, I'm finally back from the war and I'm ready to get married. So the guy that she was writing to actually ends up being a real person, and he's like, okay, well, since you want to get married, we're gonna get married. Now, this wouldn't be that bad. I didn't necessarily mind it. I do love a good marriage of convenience. However, I really did not like Logan. I got a bad vibe from him. Like, I didn't enjoy him. And I really felt the entire time kind of like he was taking advantage of the girl, because he's like, yeah, you know, you should feel bad that you were writing those letters to me, and like, you ruined my life by writing those letters to me. But not really. Like, how the fuck was she supposed to know you were a real person? She thought she just made up a random name. How was she supposed to know it was going to go to some real person? And why, because she sent you these letters, does that make you entitled to like her land and her money and her fortune? Like, why should she have to marry you? I don't get it. But he was really pushy, and like, he kind of like forced her, blackmailed her into this marriage with him, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it at all. I didn't think that they had chemistry. I wasn't rooting for their relationship at all. Like, it was just, no. But Tessa Dare is a very funny person, so there were lots of really funny moments in this, and like, there were a few moments where I thought, okay, their relationship is a little bit cute, but I just really couldn't get behind like the setup for their narrative and like the reasoning for them getting married. And I feel like if there's going to be a marriage of convenience, I think that it should be like very mutually beneficial, and I did not see the mutual benefits for them being married. It wasn't giving for me personally, so 2 stars. Yeah, so that's the end of my historical romance binge. So then I ended up reading a few books for school. Y'all know I'm an English major, blah, blah, blah. I took this particular class, which was called Living for Change, and it was about reading the memoirs of female activists and like prominent figures, and learning about their life, and like learning about the structure of memoirs and like the different literary techniques that are used in crafting a life narrative. That class was really interesting. I absolutely loved it. And we ended up reading these 2 books. Well, we read multiple books, but in April, we read Being Human by Judith Heumann, who is a disability rights activist. She's incredible. I absolutely love Being Human. One of the best memoirs I've ever read, and I would highly recommend it if you are not at all familiar with like the disability rights movement from the 70s, or like just disability justice in general. You should absolutely read this. It was incredible. Then I read Redefining Real by Janet Mock, and memoir about her life as a trans woman in Hawaii and growing up in the South and in Hawaii respectively. She went back and forth in her childhood, and like her experience with transitioning and with doing sex work to pay for her transition, and how that impacted her and impacted her view of herself and everything like that. And it was really interesting. I'm not going to give either one of them a star rating, because I don't think that you should necessarily give like a star rating to a life narrative, but I think that they were both well executed and I enjoyed reading them both. So I would recommend them if you're looking for a memoir to read. I don't know. I definitely thought that it was great. So then I read Madman by Annalee James. Now, listen, I thought that me and Annalee James were broken up. I thought that it was really, really over for us. I had no intentions of ever going back to the Necessary Evil series, because I really, really hated the, like, there's like this novella that's called Damaged. I hated that. I thought that it was so fucking bad. I didn't care about it at all. And then like the 4th book in the series, I think that one was called Head Case. I also didn't like that shit. I DNF'd it. I couldn't even finish it. So I thought that like my Necessary Evils era was absolutely over. There was no going back. But then impulsively I read Madman, and I loved it so much, you guys, you don't even understand. So I think to fully get the full experience with the Necessary Evil series, you should definitely watch my dark romance reading vlog. I'll leave it linked in the cards or in the description. You should watch it. Anyways, so the Necessary Evil series, it follows this family, the Mulvaney family, and they are a family of serial killers. They're all raised by this billionaire named Thomas Mulvaney, and he's running some kind of like human experiment where he sees if he can train these psychopathic children into being like merciless serial killers, but also integrate them into society. So each book follows a different brother, and this book follows the brother Avi. So Avi, as a day job, he is like this very famous fashion designer, and by night he's like a murderous psychopath and he kills people. So yeah, and this book is about him and one of his fashion interns named Felix. Felix is also a killer. Him and his friends call themselves the Neighborhood Watch, and they kill people because they live in a bad neighborhood. Basically, Felix and Avi, I'm obsessed with them. Listen, it's not making sense because all you just heard was me say, yeah, so they're murderers, they're really terrible people, and I love them. But I do. They're so fucking hilarious. And this is a really like, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, but the Necessary Evil series is so fun because it's really dark and like twisted and messed up, but it's also kind of like a rom-com and it's so funny. And I am obsessed with it, right? And Felix and Avi, they were just amazing. I love their dynamic so much. I love Felix, like, he's hilarious, and he's like this incredibly emotional character, and he's like constantly crying and like constantly having a mental breakdown, and I love him. Like, I loved him so much. He was so over the top and dramatic, and I just loved him so much. And Avi was just simping for Felix so hard, and that's what I like to see. And I love dark romances because I like the theme of romantic obsession, and these two characters were so obsessed with each other, and I ate it up. I fear that I really did. It was so good. So yeah, I liked it. The Necessary Evil series might be back on. We might be besties again. I don't know. Haven't decided yet, but this one was 5 stars. It was an absolute banger to me. I loved it. So then I read this other dark romance book because I was like, ooh, I'm in my dark romance bag again. And I read this dark romance book that kept getting recommended on TikTok, and it's a Peter Pan retelling, and it's called The Never King, and it's a reverse harem, and I thought I was going to eat it up, and I absolutely did not. It was okay. Listen, I would give this maybe like, I think I'd give it like 2 stars. I think I would give it like a 2.5 star rating because it tries to have a plot. It tries to have a plot. Like, basically the main girl, her name's not Wendy, it's Winnie. So Winnie is the descendant of Wendy. Every 18 years, Peter comes back, steals one of her descendants, and tries to search through, and tries to use them to locate the thing that Wendy stole from him. So it's Winnie's 18th birthday. She gets kidnapped by Peter. She's taken to Neverland, where she meets a bunch of the Lost Boys. The Lost Boys that are important in this book, they're called, it's some twins called Castian and Bastian, and then there's this guy named Vane, and he's supposed to be dark and scary, and oh my god, he's so intimidating. And then there's Peter himself, and Winnie's, you know, entangled with all of them. Cool stuff, right? Cool. I really like the twins. The twins were so fucking sexy. I had a good time with the twins. Peter, no, he was not scary. He was not intimidating. He just seemed really fucking stupid. Vane, he's supposed to be like really intimidating, really dark. He's really into like degrading Winnie for, you know, and some of the girls love that kink. I think that kink can be fun sometimes, but Vane, he just was, no, he was giving pathetic to me. I wasn't a fan of him. And I really wasn't a fan of this. The way that the book ends, like, there's a plot involved because, like I said, you know, Peter's trying to find this thing that Wendy stole from him. And the way that the plot plays out and the way that it's resolved is like, it's so pathetic, and the writing is not that great, and the sex is not that great that they're having. It's like, it's fine, but it wasn't like enough to elevate a shitty story. And then I feel like the fact that Winnie is kind of like in love with them at the end of the book is the craziest thing that I've ever seen, because she's only been with them for like 3 days, and she's been with them for 3 days after they kidnapped her, and she's already like completely forsaken her life in the human world, and she's like, I don't give a shit, I'm staying with my kidnappers. Like, okay, the Stockholm syndrome was beating her ass up. Like, I mean, it got her bad. As a romance, whether it's a dark romance or not, I think that I should still feel some kind of reasoning as to why the characters like each other or they feel passionately about each other. And I didn't feel like the guys felt passionately about Winnie. They were just using her. And I didn't understand why Winnie would feel passionately about them. in any romantic sense. And I mean, sexually, it's like, dick is plentiful. You don't need to be in Neverland to get dick. So I didn't understand it. So it just was like, it was okay, but it wasn't for me. Okay, so Technical by Alexandria House is about these two characters, Dravion and Stevie, and this is a sports romance. And so basically Stevie is this single mother who's super pregnant, and she is currently like driving for Uber Eats. And so one day she's driving for Uber Eats, she's delivering food to this basketball player Dravion's house, and she ends up, her water ends up breaking, and she ends up delivering her baby at his house. So Dravion, after helping her through her labor and delivery, is like kind of obsessed with her, and he's like, listen Stevie, I want to make sure that you and the baby are okay. So he comes to visit her, and like he gives her lots of gifts and like things to take care of her baby with, and slowly but surely he just ends up kind of falling in love with her. He's like, listen, I want to be in your baby's life, I want to be in your life, I want to be your man, like please let me. And she's like, okay, like why not? So this is kind of a very insta-lovey type story, instant family, insta love, all that good shit. Honestly, I was eating it up. Like, good for Stevie. She landed, because she was in dire straits. Like, I mean, she was living in this broke down apartment. Her baby daddy wasn't shit. I mean, she was really going through it. And she gave birth on this, like basically on the steps of this man's house, this rich man's house. And the rich man was like, yeah, I'm trying to wife you, and I'm trying to take care of your baby. Like, she won. She wanted life so seriously. I enjoyed it. Like, it was very cute. I love domestic scenes in a book. So that's why I really enjoy insta love, because they're just instantly together. It's just like, it's not even a question of will they, won't they. Like, they are. They have. They will. And they have. So they're already together. And this is just a very like sweet domestic story about them and their family. And I ate it up. And then I read the third book in the St. Louis Cyclone series. So Technical is the second book in that series. And then the third book is called Personal. And Personal was less good. So Personal was also kind of insta-lovey, but not in a good way, I'd say. So it's about this guy, what is his name? Armand Daniels. And Armand Daniels, he plays for the same basketball team as Dravion from the previous book. And so they're teammates, and this is Armand's book. And basically, he meets this girl named Ella, and Ella is like you know, she's like a beauty influencer type girly, and he sees her, he kind of has a crush on her, but him and Ella don't communicate until about 20% into the book, maybe like 25% into the book. So I'm like, what the hell? It's very odd. The way the book is structured is also really weird, because all of the chapters are incredibly short, and the characters are going through a lot of stuff. Like Ella, she used to be with this like emotionally abusive like rap star who recently died, and her side of the narrative is kind of about her dealing with that, but we don't actually get to see her dealing with any of that. Like, it's very much pushed to the sidelines, or it's like rushed through. And then Armand, like, he's dealing with some like mental health issues, and he's in therapy. You barely get to see his mental health journey or anything like that. And then the way that him and Ella's relationship starts working out is very odd, because they go on this one very weird date, and then Ella is like, okay, I want you to be my submissive. So then it's like a femdom male sub book, and like, that's right up my alley. But something about the way that this is written, the pacing is just very off. Like, there's absolutely no relationship development, there's no character development, and this is like the outline of a book that I would really love. Like, this is the outline of a 5-star book. Like, dominant woman, submissive man, sports romance, black love, mental health rep. Like, I mean, all this stuff, all of the fixings for a very delicious meal, but it didn't give. Like, it very much was like, it gave you a sip, a little taste of something that you really might like, but it's not well crafted at all. It's not well paced. So yeah, I read that one. It wasn't that good. Technical was much better. I'd recommend Technical. It was a good time. Then I read Looking by Katrina Jackson. This is her new black love polyamorous romance. This shit was incredible. 5 fucking stars. It is a polyamorous romance about these 3 characters, Jordan, Darian, and Nadia. And so Darren and Nadia, they are married. They've been married for a bunch of years. They've been together for a really long time, and they decide they want to open up their relationship. So this book is about them looking for a third, and they're looking for like a girlfriend for them both. And Nadia is bisexual, so she's looking to explore her sexuality, and they're looking for a girlfriend basically. So they go onto this like dating app for polyamorous people called Three-Way, and they're looking for a girlfriend, and they meet this girl named Jordan. And so this book is about them going on dates with Jordan and like building their relationship with her, and their kind of ups and downs forming this three-way relationship. And I loved it. It was so good. It was so sexy. It was really funny. I wouldn't say that it's like has a whole bunch of emotional depth, but it's not really looking to be that. It's supposed to be like a steamy romance, and it's definitely that. And I enjoyed it so much. So 5 stars. We loved it. We stan. It was great. Then I read a few Christina C. Jones books. So I read The Prior Affair by Christina C. Jones. This is a part of her Night Shift series. The first book in that series is called Equivalent Exchange. I love Equivalent Exchange. Prior Affair, I don't know how I feel about it. Prior Affair is about this girl. Essentially, she loses her house in a fire, and this firefighter who comes to like fight the fire is this super hot guy that she meets up with. They end up going for a drink after her really traumatic night, and they end up becoming like friends with benefits, and then that transforms into slightly more. But this series, the Night Shift series, is kind of about Christina writing these like soulmate romances in a modern context. And so the two characters are like soulmates, and the way that the soulmate thing plays out is just, it was so corny to me. Like, I get it. I love the soulmates thing that she does in Equivalent Exchange, but in this one, it was so corny and odd to me, and I was not a fan personally. So I think that I would give this one probably like a 3.5 star, because Christina, she really does chemistry well. I like the characters. I like their interactions together. It was sexy. It was fun. I would also highly recommend listening to the audiobook, because the audiobook narrator, his name is Emmanuel Ingram. Emmanuel Ingram, call me. Like, let's see what we can make happen, because listen, that audiobook was something special. I have never in my life listened to an audiobook that had me sweating, and he did that. So good on you, Emmanuel Ingram. Hope you win some awards soon, because you deserve them. I mean, listen to the audiobook. You have to listen to it. I'm so serious. So like, I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. Didn't 100% love all the soulmateism of it all, but it was cute. Then I read a different Christina C. Jones, and it was called Behind the Scenes. And these two characters, they end up in a car accident. Everything's like, oh my god, we're in a car accident, blah, blah, blah. So he gives her a ride home because her car is completely totaled. They end up sleeping together. And then, like, basically the next day, she's at this business meeting, and he shows up. And she finds out that she is going to be working on the production of his latest TV show, because he is a screenwriter. And so this is, like, about them and their relationship and stuff. And it's kind of a will they, won't they, you know, friends with benefits, sort of forbidden because they're working together and they shouldn't be together, but they like each other. It's like one of those kind of romances. I have to say that this is not one of my favorite Christina C. Jones romances. I think it's, you know, it's good like all of her books are. I think it's well written. I think that the characters are interesting, fully fleshed out, very well realized characters. I think that they had good chemistry. I like their sexy scenes together. Like, it was giving on all those fronts, but I can't say that I really like cared all that much about their relationship. I felt like the pacing was off, and I just found myself not really caring. So I give it like 3 stars, because I don't think that it's bad, but I just didn't love it. Okay, so then I read another Christina C. Jones. It's called The Proposal. This was so good. It's a short story. It's kind of like a epilogue in a way to another book by her, which is called Something Like Love, and it's about this couple named Eddie and Astrid. And I love Eddie and Astrid, one of my favorite couples of all time. They're both bisexy, and I love them so much. They were my first time ever reading about a bisexual couple, and I love them so much. They're icons, legends. They are the moment. I love them so much, and this book is about them getting, you know, engaged, and I loved it. It's very cute. It's not a book, it's a novella. It's really short. I want to say it's like 15 pages. Like, it's an incredibly short thing, but it's so cute. Then I read A Sign of Affection Volume 2 by Sue Morishita, and this is a college romance manga about this girl named Yuki, and Yuki is deaf, and basically she ends up meeting this guy, and his name is Itsuyomi. And so basically Itsuyomi, he likes her, he's attracted to her, he's interested in her, and the way that he's kind of convincing her to spend more time with him is he asks her to teach him sign language. And so this is a very sweet, slow burn romance manga about like Itsuyomi and Yuki's relationship. And so volume 2 was just a continuation of them getting to know each other and kind of going on like dates and stuff. Very cute stuff. I enjoyed it. Can't wait to read volume 3. True Biz by Sarah Novick is about this headmistress named February, and she works at a school for the deaf, and about two of her other students. So I would say that February has a POV, and then there are two other students named Charlie and Austin who have POVs, and this is about their experiences in their school for the deaf. And this is a really interesting story. I would say that I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book for the narrative itself, because it's kind of a slice of life type story where it just wants you to get closer and intimate with characters who are deaf and what their life experiences are like. But this story is very didactic in tone, and it's really teaching you a lot about the deaf community, deaf culture, and various things that are impacting deaf people today, and kind of like small pieces of deaf history that you may or may not know. And it also teaches you a little bit about sign language, about the grammatical structure of it, about how to form signs and things like that. And there's like a multimedia aspect to it where you see these kind of like worksheets that teach you about sign language and stuff like that. And I really loved it. I enjoyed my reading experience with it quite a bit, but I will say that the narrative itself, like, it wasn't great. It didn't necessarily go anywhere, but I liked reading it. And I really liked the POV of Charlie, who's kind of this young troubled girl because she has been language deprived her whole life because she has a cochlear implant, and her family didn't want her to learn sign language and didn't want her to be like in a school for the deaf because they wanted to see if she could regain any of her hearing through the usage of a cochlear implant, but it just didn't really work out for her. And so this story kind of talks about how language deprivation, like what that can do to a person and how that impacts their growth and their like social skills and things like that. And I just love Charlie so much. She's one of my favorite characters that I've read about in a really long time. I'm not sure why I'm so attached to her, but I found her to be really interesting and complex and flawed and nuanced, and I just kind of was eating it up. So I liked it, but again, I will say that this story is very didactic in tone, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for the narrative, but I think the characters are cool, and I think that I learned a lot from it. So I would recommend it to an extent, but yeah, it was cool. Okay, so then the last book I need to tell you about is Open Hearts by Eve Dangerfield. I absolutely love this book. 5 fucking stars. It was fantastic. Fantastic. And listen, I won't be taking any criticism. I won't be taking any criticism whatsoever. I love this book with all of my heart. It made me cry. Listen, I was ridiculously emo about it. I loved it. So basically, this book is about these two characters named Ashley and Dean. And Ashley, she is about 28, 29, and she has decided that she wants to have a baby. She doesn't currently have a partner, so she's planning to just kind of get fertilized. She's planning to she's planning to go to a sperm bank and just like do in vitro, get pregnant. She doesn't really care. She's like, you know, fuck it. And she's planning to enter this different phase of her life where she wants to be a mother. She ends up hooking up with this guy named Dean at a party, and Dean is like a sex god. He's so amazing, but he does not have his life together whatsoever. I mean, he's kind of like, he's subletting from a friend. He's terrible with money management. He's very goofy. He's a certified himbo. And Ashley, while really liking Dean, and while Ashley really likes Dean, she just does not think that he is like necessarily relationship material. He doesn't think that he's like father material. And so this is a story about them and their relationship and how complicated it is to find somebody that you really, really like, but feeling like they don't necessarily fit into your life plan or where you are in your life right now. And I love them so much. I love Dean. He's amazing. Like, listen to me. He is a certified himbo, and I feel like there need to be more himbo heroes because he was just the moment to me. He was so iconic. This also has like a slight like dom sub scenario going on, but listen, I loved it. I ate it up. It was so good. Dean, he was everything. Ashley, she was a bad bitch. I love their relationship so much, and they made me cry. Like, there's this part where Dean writes her a letter, and the letter is one of the goofiest, most beautiful things that I have ever read in my entire life, and I loved it. So I gave it 5 stars. My battery's about to die, so I will leave you all on that note. So thank you so much for watching. Leave me a book stack emoji for all 17 books that I read this month, and I will hopefully see you all in my next one. So bye, you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and a special thank you to all of my wonderful, wonderful patrons.